Well, a very warm welcome to the Naunton Downs estate. No, we're not here to discuss my woeful tee to green game. We are in fact at the home of Cheltenham Festival winning trainer Ben Pooling. Recently, Ben and the team up sticks from nearby Bourton on the Water, now set in these plush facilities against the backdrop of an 18-hole golf course in the heart of the Cotswolds. Ben, giving us a look around the whole new setup, everything this place has to offer, and of course, we're getting the lowdown on all the stable stars and the plans for his string as we head into the winter months and beyond. Well, Ben Pooling, lovely to be here, and thank you for having us.
No, it's great to have you, Ed, and nice to have you here, and the weather's just improved just in time for you.
Absolutely, perfect for 18 holes of golf, as we'll come on to in due course. But I mean, the first thing I've got to say is, wow, this is like a five-star hotel. I mean, your old setup at Bourton had its charm, but this is phenomenal. You'll just be delighted with the facilities you've got at your disposal now.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. We're chuffed to pieces with it all. It's in the grand scheme of things, it didn't take that long. We started building in the January 21, and we were finished. Well, we had horses here. We weren't finished, but we had horses here April 22, and it's been a lot of a lot of heartache and a lot of things going on. It's been a busy time, but for Sophie and I and all the team here, it's come together quite well, and we're thrilled with what we've got.
Well, interesting you mentioned your wife Sophie there, because got a bit of a quote from her where back in 2020, the height obviously global pandemic, lockdowns, bit of a stressful time, you turned to her one evening after a glass of Merlot and said, I think we should up sticks and move yards, to which she replied, Ben, you've lost the plot. Has she revised that opinion since, or is that very much still the viewpoint from her?
No, I think she's just about okay with it now, but yeah, it was probably a crazy enough thing to do at the time, but we were at a stage in our career where we felt we needed to progress and we needed to take it to the next level, and if you sit on your backside doing nothing, you're not going to get anywhere. So it was an important time and a big decision for us to make, but hopefully the right one.
Absolutely. So all the stress was worth it in the end, I suppose it has to be said. Looking back at the old place at Bourton, you must still hold close to your heart, obviously, some stunning memories. As you know, we had the likes there, didn't we, at Barters Hill, Willoughby Court, the Brook as well, winning at the Cheltenham Festival. A place that still fonds your heart, or does that feel like a distant memory to you now? No,
it was amazing. We went there with 8 horses. We left with, a yard that took 83. The facilities, my old landlord Ian had been great in the fact he'd moved with us and put in the facilities that were necessary, and we've had an amazing time there, but it wasn't our own, and it was time to move on, and so never look back, always look forward.
Absolutely. That's something you have done. As I said, it's a bit like a 5-star hotel here. I mean, the memory foam mattresses for the horses, we've got en suites in the stables. I'm a bit disappointed you haven't greeted me with a cocktail list and some canapes, to be honest with you, but I mean, this really is state of the art, and everything you set out, the vision you wanted, it's all come to fruition.
Yeah, it has. We've taken various bits of inspiration from different yards. I've brought some ideas that I learnt from Nikki. We've got a schooling ring to the exact dimensions that Hen Knight's schooling ring is. I've got a hill gallop that I've designed the way it works on what I saw when I was at Joseph O'Brien's. Lots of different things that we've pulled together, hopefully to make a centre which is going to work well for us going forward.
And you mentioned the different facilities here in terms of, I believe we've got the 6 furlong gallop running adjacent to the 5th hole. You've got the 14th hole in terms of the golf running across it. I mean, how does that work when Bryson DeChambeau rocks up, whacks one 340 yards wide of the fairway? I mean, is there a traffic light system? Is there a stop-start system? How does that all tie together, the golf and the racing side of things?
So we were, I always thought it would work. Certainly the members here at the golf course didn't think it would work because they didn't understand what the use of a gallop entailed. But we went through all sorts of ideas of traffic light systems and the rest of it. It's very, very simple. We have 5 red flags up the side of the gallop, and if there's a red flag up, it means those horses could be using the gallop. If you can see a horse, you don't play your shot, but the horses come and go as they will on a gallop, and the golf, the play seems to flow very, very well. there is absolutely no issue with it whatsoever. So it's worked really well.
Yeah, absolutely. So all very organised then. And your wife Sophie, is she more in charge of the running of the golf side of things, or do you find yourselves raking out the bunkers at 10 o'clock at night?
No. So Soph's is Soph's is running the sort of clubhouse side of it. So Naunton Downs, that it's now known as. So we've got the Fitzdares Club in half of it, which is great. Fitzdares being our new sponsor. It's great to be working with them so closely, and they're a great bunch and great fun. And then we've got we've named the other side of the bar Willoughby's. So that's sort of more the golfing day-to-day side. But it's great, and that's working really well. So Soph's marching on with all that, and we've got a good team of greenkeepers and all the rest of it that keep that side of it under control. I'm afraid I pretty much stay down here most of the time.
I was going to say, so it's far from 40 Towers then, it's more like Pooling Palace, isn't it? All very organised, all running in synchronised fashion, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, we're trying to keep it all as smooth as possible at the moment.
Absolutely, absolutely. Looking at what you've got in this year, I mean, how many horses have you got in trading as we head into the winter months?
So we've got 94 boxes here. I've bought quite a 20 odd 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds this year, and we've got, I suppose, about 75 mature horses to go to war with. So we're probably around the 90 mark, but I mean we're actively looking to continue to buy at the moment in the market, and it's an exciting time and the results are going well, so hopefully we can really use this place as a springboard to get back to where we want to be.
Indeed, I was going to say, in terms of the buying of horses, has it been a busy summer for you in regards to the sales?
Yeah, so as I said, 23-year-olds, well, 13 3-year-olds and 7 2-year-olds, looking towards this future with the sort of new juvenile National Hunt Series, and then probably 8 or 10, if not 12 form horses so far. But we had a lot of horses that were probably, coming to the end of their days through the last few years. So it was time for a good it was a transitional period within the horses as well.
When you go into the market, do you have a kind of default go-to horse you're looking for? I mean, are you looking for pointers, store horses, the French market, a chaser for 5 years' time, or do you tend to cover all bases depending on what suits you?
Yeah, no, we've always, having learnt my trade at Nicky's, he always bought stores, and that was not his only source of horses by any stretch, but he was always very keen to buy the stores, and I followed that straight away. I saw how he nurtured and bought these stores on, and to be honest, they bought our two best horses to date, Bart's Hill and Willoughby Court. In our early days, they were both stores, and so we followed that mould, and so we're very keen to continue on with that. But there's always room, for the Irish point-to-point types, horses from the flat. The French market isn't something we've had that much of yet. We've had plenty of French horses for Simon and Isaac and people like that, but it's a market that I believe you need to know every market very, very well, and at the moment I'm looking to probably get into the French market a little bit more, but at the moment the store market, the point-to-point market, has probably been our sort of most used avenue.
But looking back at last season, obviously the highlight, I suppose, has to be Global Citizens win at the Cheltenham Festival. No doubt you were singing into the early hours with a Coke Zero on that night. I mean, that was a phenomenal performance. That kind of, obviously, I suppose he's an old horse in terms of he's rising 11 now, and he's still from the old Bourton setup, but he kind of ushered in the new era in many respects to your new setup.
Yeah, he did. He's been a horse that's done so much for us. Ironically, he's a horse that I really wanted after he won his point-to-point and didn't manage to buy, but thankfully he ended up here. And I honestly believe he's one of those horses that he's won a Grade 1, he's won a new one, beating Silver Streak, which was no bad performance that year. He's finished third in the Champion Hurdle. He's won a Dovecote, he's won a Wayward Lad, he's been a very good horse, and he just completely lost his way there a couple of years ago, and it just took a little while to get him back to his A game. But for him to peak at Cheltenham on that day it was pretty special, because the Megsons are huge supporters of ours. They're fabulous people, and it meant a lot for us to get them their first festival winner. But it meant a lot to, even more, I think, for it to be Global, who a lot of people have written off, including people in the yard, and these horses sometimes, when they give their all like Global does, you can't just expect it to be time after time after time. There's going to be a day where they wake up and go, wow, that was pretty tough going, and they need a little bit of time just to come back to themselves and believe in their ability again, and that's what happened that day.
And he'd had a wind operation in the lead up.
Yeah, a couple of runs previous, we just felt his soft palate needed tightening up, and might need again at some point this season. But he's a very, very straightforward horse, actually. He loves his job, he's very sound. Very frustrating after Cheltenham, because he was unbelievably well, that we couldn't go to Aintree or Punchestown because he knocked a joint. And it was a very minor injury, but a niggling injury that we just couldn't quite. We got it right, and then days before he went to Punchestown, he just knocked it again, which was a real shame. But he goes out to America there actually today. Flies off to America for the American National, so we'll see how we get on.
Oh, brilliant. And I mean, as I mentioned, a reference to these 10 rising 11, would you be more tempted to tilt it windmills now with him as we go into the back part of the season?
Yeah, I mean, we ran him in a prep race for the American National at Worcester, a complete disaster. Made a bad mistake at the third and gave himself some pretty bad knocks and pulled some muscles, and Woodsy was never happy with him. So, we were in a stage where we weren't sure whether we were going to go to America, but we seem to have got him back. His work at home has been very, very good. Would I have loved the prep run to have gone better? Yes. But we've got him back to his best without prep runs before, and he goes there today off the back of 2 very good pieces of work. His schooling's been electric. And with him, you never know. It's all or nothing, really. But as he's 10, we thought, why not? Why not have a go and see how we get on? So that's what we'll do.
I was going to say, we've just been up the gallops in your trusty Nissan, and Global absolutely flying. Looks in rude health for the trip to the States.
He is in very good form with himself. Yeah, we're very, very happy with him. But he's got a flight to America now. He's got to settle in. So it's going to be, it's unknown territory for us and him.
I was going to say, just finally on him in the back end of the season, like in the spring, you look at some of the bigger targets. I suppose it depends where his handicap mark ends up, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, America was target 1. And as you've alluded to, he's not getting any younger. He's not a horse that's had a lot of racing for his age. He's certainly not showing signs of, becoming an older horse. But this season, yeah, we'll pick our way through the season, and if he wins a handicap or something, or even 2, then yeah, if he's within the mix of running in some graded races again, we'll have a go, because what have we got to lose?
Absolutely. Now, your darling, absolute looker, probably the best looking in the yard, not anything I'd be able to relate to, it has to be said, but looks absolutely mustard when bolting up on Chase debut at Huntingdon, and then ran really well in some hot races afterwards. What's the plan for your darling this season?
So he will go, we've got a race, there's a couple of races for him back end of October, but we might just sit tight and wait. There's a race at Ascot on the 18th, 0 to 145, 2 mile 5. He is very, very good when fresh, and he's run well in races after that last season without being as flamboyant and as electric, and there's something in that. He's obviously very, very good fresh. So let's run him first time out, see where we find ourselves. If he suddenly went up 8 or 10 and looked like he might get into the bottom of a handicap at something decent, then I wouldn't be afraid of putting him out and looking after him for the rest of the season for that big day. He is very, very good fresh, but he's a huge talent, and he remains that. And I've slight feeling that this new yard will suit him very well, and he could just be that horse that finds his consistency for being here. A lot of the horses I've run through the summer, who I honestly thought going into this summer they were badly handicapped at the back of last summer. Let alone we didn't buy one new summer jumper, and we've had the best start we've ever had. Horses winning 3 races, 4 races, 2 races, and the consistency there is time and time again, and I can only put that down to the new environment they're in.
Yeah, fantastic. And just finally on him, in regards to trip, you stick to 2.5 miles, or do you think he'd get 3?
Yeah, he'll get 3. He'd win over 2, he'd win over 3. It doesn't matter to him actually when he's on his A game. He's got gears galore, but 2.5 miles, and you happily send him over 3 as long as he was in the form he needed to be to win.
Now, Harper's Brook dotted up when last seen in April. We're looking at fences and 2.5 miles, that kind of ballpark for him this season?
Yeah, he's a chaser through and through. Great, big, gorgeous chasing type. And he's very good at Carlisle, first out last year. And then we chucked him in at Sandown in the group grade 2, and he just didn't really get into it. Completely bombed at Exeter, and I freshened him up and took him to Fosslas, and he won as he liked under a penalty. He's a good horse. I think he could be a brilliant chaser. He's just made to jump a fence. He's scope like you wouldn't know. And another horse that just might not want a race every week. Wants probably planning the season slightly and looking after him a bit, but I think chasing is his game.
Now, fine casting, some good form over hurdles, and clearly doesn't mind it when the mud's flying as well. I suppose as we look out the window now, that's not going to be a problem. What are your plans of him? He's a very good bumper horse, and he's always threatened to really make it to the kind of top bracket over obstacles.
He simply jumped terribly for his first couple of runs. He wasn't good enough. And then he won at Fosslas, Newbury. I can't remember what else he did. I think he ran at Warwick. I think I ran him at Warwick over 2 miles on quick ground, and he just didn't quite have the gears. He definitely handles any ground. If it's good ground, he needs 2.5. If it's bottomless, he can easily go back to 2. He's a lovely horse. He's going to stay handicap hurdling, and I'd hope he'd be quite a smart handicap hurdler going forward for the rest of the season.
Now, Slipway relished the stamina test in the Highlands National. That was a very smart performance. Up to 133 now, so I suppose a different set of challenges in regards to your race planning skills going further forward. You're going to have to swim with sharks to some extent with that horse now.
Yeah, no, very much so. He's a horse with a very high knee action. He's quite narrow, quite tall, leggy individual, very good mover, lovely attitude. But he just looks, his action tells you he wants soft ground. But every time I run him on soft ground, he doesn't turn up. He doesn't seem to enjoy it. I don't know what it is. Right. So we ran him, he won at Southwell early season, and then he won at Perth on better ground again at the end. Stamina is his forte. Jumping is electric. He's a brilliant jumper. So because, the profile says Welsh National or, Tommy Whittle or anything like that. But the ground just won't be there for him. So I'm going to cherry pick. He's not slow, so we'll probably look over 3 miles to start him. And see if we can just cherry pick a couple of nice races. You never know. If this horse ended up with a mark in the mid-140s, if I've ever trained a national horse, this is it, because he is genuinely just a brilliant jumper. And one thing I learned, I had our first runner last season in the National Kildare, and he schooled brilliantly at home, but the big day and the speed they went, his jumping just wasn't quite there. And although he had the class to travel in between the fences, he came to the chair probably 15 lengths down from 15 lengths, and he just didn't take off. And it was just confidence of in the jumping, and that to me is what Slipway possesses. And so, it's gone from being a stiffer jumping test as it was, because the fences are much softer, but they're still big. And so horses still have to have that courage to jump those sort of fences at speed because they're going quicker. So it's a totally different test. It's almost like the ultimate thing, I think, now, because before, don't get me wrong, the years gone by of the Nationals where, you properly had to jump and there was no give in the fences. That was the first. They always used to say the first circuit was about survival, and then you rode the second circuit as you did. No longer. I think it's going to be a long time since you see a national horse being held up to win. They've got to be relatively in a decent position, sticking out of trouble, but that only makes the whole thing more competitive, and they go faster early doors and some race now. But I think he's the sort of horse, whether it's this year or next year, I think he's got the credentials to run it. And for his fabulous owners, the Imbirikoses, their story with the National is huge. So to get a runner for them in the National would be great.
Now, Severance was very consistent last year, an absolute cracker on Trials Day, it has to be said. What are the plans for that one going forward?
So he runs on Sunday in the Welsh Champion Hurdle. He'll probably stay handicap hurdling. He's got a big one in him somewhere. I mean, if he didn't hit the crossbar, second in the Swinton, second at Aintree, second on Trials Day, fourth up in the Moor Battle. He just kept hitting the crossbar. And there's a big one in him, and it won't be too far away.
In terms of ground with him, would you want it on the better side? Or?
Yeah, I don't think it
Not too
really
bothered.
matters.
Yeah.
Actually, I think a proper test on over 2 miles would be ideal. He's enough gears to go 2 mile pace on decent ground early season, but towards the back end of the season, I wouldn't mind if it rained and it was a Betfair hurdle on heavy ground might be quite fun, although he doesn't fit the profile, but that sort of thing.
Now, Shakeemup Harry, obviously a horse who brings some very good graded hurdle form to the table, runner-up in the Tolworth, got his win over fences last season. You'd be looking at some of the bigger handicap chases with him, I'd imagine.
Yeah, he's another that seems very good fresh, but I think he could have a very good year. Ground is important to him. He goes through wet ground like it's good ground, so that's his advantage. I'd love to see a soft ground November Cheltenham, and he would go straight to the Paddy Power. He will also be in the 2 mile handicap that meeting as well, but that'll be the meeting we're targeting. Fresh as a daisy, Paddy Power Gold Cup for him, and just needs some ground.
Well, I was just going to ask you about in regards to the trip, because at Aintree, over the minimum trip, he looked outpaced but stayed on in the closing stage. And I remember you said after he ran it over 2.5 at Haydock, you weren't sure he quite stayed.
No.
But how do you kind of sum him up?
He came back after that Haydock race not right.
Right.
Because every jockey that rides him, and we've had a few, Harry Cobden, Keelan, Luca, Darryl, Nico, they've all sat on him. And it's so great to have the consistency with Keelan and Luca now going forward, because it's just so much easier. But they all think he just wants a trip. But he's just got a high cruising speed and he just gallops and gallops and gallops. But I think every time we've gone 2.5, he hasn't been quite right. So if we go 2.5 first time out this season and he doesn't stay, then he doesn't stay.
Right.
But until that is proven, I'm going to hold faith that he's going to beloved it.
Hold faith in the trainer, why not? Just looking at some others, the Cobb. Now, he is a little bit of an enigma, if you don't mind me saying. A River Don winner, blows very hot and cold, but off 129 could be fairly treated. Yeah,
very much so. Whether we stick handicap hurdling or whether we go chasing, novice handicap chasing, he is his own, he's completely and utterly his own person. He does what he wants to do. But I know first time out, he'll be well up for it, and he'll take a bit of stopping off that mark, I would think. He's a lovely horse for the future, hopefully. He's a great bunch of owners. They accept he is what he is, because he is the Cobb. He does do exactly what he wants to do. He doesn't do anything he doesn't have to do. But he's in great form, and he hasn't had that much racing, really. And there's some big days left in him yet.
Brilliant. You mentioned the future. In terms of, you said there was a bit of a transitional period with the move. In terms of any kind of bumper horses, new faces on the scene, anyone, or any horses in particular you're looking forward to seeing?
Yeah, we've bought some lovely Irish pointing types, a couple for the Megsons. There's a lovely little horse called Getaway Drum Lee that will run soon. Joda Dance is a horse of the Megsons that I think is very nice. Rock On Cowboy. They'd be sort of the pointers. There's a few others. A nice horse called Storming Home. And then of the bumper types, we've got some lovely horses that I didn't run last year. Samazel is a particularly nice one. Peak Rock, Lady Robin. There's any amount I could name.
Brilliant.
But I think the strength in our novice hurdlers and bump horses this year is quite strong.
And looking further afield, kind of round things off, there's rumours you're going to be training Oaks and Guineas winners. Polly Pot, you're going to potentially be training a horse in the Classic next season if all goes to plan.
Yeah.
I mean, tell us the story of that one there.
So it was actually, Andrew and Jane Megson own Polly. And when Harry Dunlop announced his retirement to his owners a couple of days before he announced it to the press, Andrew rang me up and said, Ben, we know you want to have a few flat horses going forward. Would you take on our couple of flat horses when Harry retires? And I said, yeah, it'd be great. And he said, we've got a nice backward colt that probably needs castrating, and then he'll be nice next season. And we've got a lovely little mare, a little filly called Polly Pot, who has won 2. We probably don't think she's as good as the other horse, but she's won 2, and she runs in the nursery on Thursday at Salisbury. And I said, yeah, it'd be great. I'd love to have a few flat horses. And I said, geez, no pressure though, sending me a horse that's won, a couple of her last races. Anyway, I watched the race at Salisbury, and she was fairly keen early doors, and I was like, oh, she probably won't finish this off that well. And anyway, she got the job done very nicely. And so I rang Andrew delighted. Oh, bloody marvellous. And 2-3 days later, he said, we're going to run her in the May Hill, mate. And I said, wow, that's great. Knowing, even I knew what the May Hill was, And anyway, she was rated 75, and in the morning she was 100 to 1. And they were quietly confident. Anyway, she went off 40s, and there's no two ways about it. She was dropped in stone last. She came through them beautifully and won very nicely in a very good time. And so she's been supplemented for the Fillies Mile on Friday at Newmarket. So we'll see how she goes in her first Group 1. Andrew and Jane and Lily and Jazz, the daughters, they're all very keen to keep hold of her. They've had, offers from various people to buy her. But no, she's to race on, and hopefully all goes well between now and January. She'll probably arrive, and depending on what we see in the Fillies Mile and how she comes in next season will depend whether we look at Guineas, or she's actually in the Irish Guinea, 1,000 Guineas as well, or whether we look for a prep race and go straight and then to the Oaks. Who knows? But I mean, it's quite extraordinary. We've probably had 5 runners on the flat, all with horses that I'm just slightly at a loss with what to do over hurdles. And here we are with a potential classics filly on our hands, and it is something we're going to look forward to and go forward with and see how we get on. But to have a classic horse in your first season training flat horses properly is exciting. I'm not daunted by it. Why would I be? Let's just do the right thing and make sure we do it properly.
So trips to America, Cheltenham Festival winners, in the winners' enclosure after the Oaks. It's going to be a quiet few months for you, Ben, I think.
Hey, if all that happens, we'll be right. Hey, it's a busy time of the year. It's a great period that we're in at the moment. We're honestly thrilled with everything. The team I've got behind me at the moment is as strong as I've ever had from a human perspective. And I think we've got some really nice horses going forward. Could do with unearthing a couple of, proper Grade 1 performers this season. But as a whole, we're very, very happy with where we are. The yard is working brilliantly. Our owners have been great, and we're really looking forward to a good time ahead.
Well, Ben, many thanks for having us. It's been a pleasure, and best of luck with the aforementioned upcoming season.
No worries. Thanks, Ed.